Okay, let's unpack this. You've done it. You have successfully navigated the entire research process. You've battled the footnotes. You've, survived the endless revisions. You've finally hit save on what is an incredibly rigorous and original piece of academic work,
Hmm.
and it's a huge achievement. And frankly, you deserve like a week off.
You absolutely do. But not quite yet.
Ah, not yet.
That solitary act of writing, it's so demanding. But a lot of people, they mistakenly believe the journey is over once that final sentence is typed.
Right.
And that is absolutely not the case. We've really reached the final mile markers in this academic marathon. And these two hurdles, submission and presentation, they require completely different skills than writing.
Exactly. Our listener, the learner, is right there facing those final two crucial hurdles. First, preparing that masterpiece for a final, flawless submission. Ensuring no tiny technicality derails weeks of your intellectual effort.
Yeah.
And then second, converting that dense, detailed research into something entirely different. An engaging, high-impact presentation.
It's a translation.
It is. We're moving from that quiet, focused environment of writing to the public act of communicating and defending your contribution.
And our mission today is to just cut through the stress of these final steps by giving you some really actionable, practical strategies. We've pulled together the final prep checklists, the strategic conversion tactics, and the essential speaking skills you need. We're moving you from that solitary writer to the public contributor. And, this is high-stakes detail work that so often separates the excellent submission from one that's just merely acceptable.
We really need to nail down the specifics because as we've seen in, countless submissions, a brilliant argument can be instantly undermined by a simple formatting error
Oh, instantly.
or a presentation that just tries to cram, 5,000 words onto 10 slides?
There's the wall of text. We've all seen it.
The dreaded wall of text.
So we've got a clear structure for this deep dive. We're going to start with a non-negotiable 4-point checklist for your final submission. Think of it as the final structural safety net.
Okay.
Then we'll tackle the great translation. How do you turn that big, comprehensive document into a concise, impactful visual summary? And then finally, we'll move into the performance, the speaking and delivery skills that separate a good summary of a paper from a truly effective, memorable academic presentation.
It's time to secure the submission, amplify the findings, and maximize your score. Let's dive in. So we're starting with the details that feel, let's be honest, a little tedious.
A little, yeah.
But they are absolutely vital. This is the final submission gauntlet. And you have to think of this as the final safety check before you click that, that terrifying upload button.
Mm-hmm.
The goal here is, it's pretty simple, really.
It is. You just want to eliminate any reason for the reviewer to focus on anything other than your content.
Any reason at all.
The first area, and I would argue the most common pitfall, is formatting finesse. The foundational rule is simple. You have to follow the required academic style, whether that's APA, MLA, Chicago, whatever it is, explicitly. That's your compass.
And usually you're given that style guide by your professor or your institution. But here's where it gets really interesting for those who maybe weren't assigned a specific rigid style.
Right.
The crucial instruction then becomes ensuring absolute consistency across the entire document.
Yes. Consistency signals intellectual meticulousness. It tells the reader immediately that you are a serious scholar who respects scholarly convention.
It's a nonverbal cue almost.
It is. Inconsistencies, even really minor ones, they create what we call cognitive friction.
Cognitive friction, I like that.
Yeah, if the reader is constantly stumbling over different spacing or, different heading fonts, their brain subconsciously starts diverting processing power away from your argument and toward noticing your errors.
And you don't want your reviewer thinking about your font size when they should be considering your findings.
Never. So let's detail the specific formatting points that need that meticulous verification. First up, the title page structure.
Okay. The title page seems simple enough.
You'd think so, but it needs to be checked really carefully. Does it include all the required elements? Your name, the date, the course name, the full title, your institution? And are they all correctly centered or aligned according to that specific style?
Right.
In APA, for instance, your title page has a very specific running head. And the placement for the abstract, it deviates from the rest of the paper. It's simple, but a misplaced title block is instantly jarring.
It just looks wrong from the first second.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then there's the body of the text, starting with spacing.
Line spacing, paragraph spacing.
They have to be compliant. In most academic standards, that means double space throughout. But you have to look closer at the paragraph spacing. Are you accidentally using extra returns between paragraphs?
Oh, yeah. Hitting enter twice.
Everyone does it. But academic styles typically rely on a setting like add 6 pid after paragraph, not a manual return. And that can lead to these huge variations in visual appearance. It just looks messy.
Okay, what's next on the checklist?
Margins compliance. This is usually non-negotiable. Often it's 1 inch on all 4 sides. Your word processor might try to help you with dynamic margins, especially if you open the document on a different computer or a different app.
So you have to manually verify it.
You have to manually verify it to ensure no content spills into that required white space.
And here's a quick win. Checking font size uniformity.
A huge one. If you've been copying and pasting source material, even if you thought you pasted it as plain text, you might have some residual 11-point font hiding in a block quote or a heading somewhere.
It's so easy to miss.
So easy. And related to that is page numbers placement. They have to be correctly placed, often in the top right corner, and consistently formatted. Sometimes you omit the number on the title page. Sometimes you use a different format for the intro pages versus the main body. You have to check the guide.
And finally, the big one. The thing that really structures the argument visually.
Yes. The headings hierarchy and appearance. This is the visual roadmap for your reader. It guides them through your logic.
And this is a point where students so often lose precision.
They do. So let's get a little technical here. If you have 3 levels of headings, they must look distinct and follow the required style.
Can you give an example, like for APA?
Sure. In the widely used APA style, a level 1 heading is centered and bolded. A level 2 heading is flush left and bolded. A level 3 heading is flush left, bolded, and italicized, followed by a period with the text starting on the same line.
So they're visually distinct steps.
Exactly. And if your level 2 heading looks the same as your level 3 heading, the logical flow of your argument immediately falls apart for the reader. They can't visually distinguish between a major subsection and a smaller subsection.
So the advice is to use the word processor styles feature.
Please, use the styles feature consistently. It ensures this hierarchy holds up perfectly from start to finish. This check is crucial for signaling organizational maturity. Now we move to the foundation of the work. Source integrity. And this transcends formatting. This is about professional obligation and academic honesty.
Right. A paper is only as strong as the evidence supporting it.
And that evidence has to be meticulously cataloged so that any informed reader can actually go and verify your claims.
We often focus on avoiding plagiarism during the writing phase, but the source here is emphasizing a dedicated final check for alignment and technical compliance.
Yes.
Let's start with the reference list requirements.
Okay, this checklist has 4 non-negotiable points. 1, a complete list must include all sources cited in the paper. No missing links.
Okay.
2, you have to ensure complete bibliographic information for each entry. Missing dates, publication names, URLs, DOIs, that's unacceptable. It makes the source unverifiable.
Right. Number 3.
It must maintain proper order. Usually that's alphabetical by the primary author's last name. And 4, it must exhibit consistent formatting. And this is where the technical details, like the hanging indent, come into play.
Ah, the dreaded hanging indent.
The dreaded hanging indent. So many students struggle with this, but here's why it exists.
Okay, tell me why.
It's required by many styles, like APA and MLA, to allow the reader's eye to quickly scan the left margin and locate the author's last name instantly. If you indent the first line instead of the subsequent lines, the list just becomes this chaotic block of text.
So you have to verify that this specific visual cue is applied uniformly across every single entry in your list.
Every single one.
That's the list at the end, but the real test is the in-text citation synchronization.
This is the highest level of detail required for scholarly work. It's where synchronization is absolutely crucial. You have to verify that every single idea borrowed, summarized, paraphrased, or directly quoted from a source has proper in-text acknowledgement.
So if you have Jones 2021 in your text,
Then Jones 2021 must appear in your reference list, and vice versa.
I often hear students say, but I copied and pasted the reference list from my notes, so it should be fine.
Right.
Why is that not enough?
Because writing is messy. It's just a messy process. You might have decided late in the game to paraphrase an idea from a source and inserted the citation, but then you forgot to add the full reference entry to the back of the paper.
Or the other way around.
Exactly. Or, conversely, you might have removed a paragraph that included the only citation for a specific source, but you left the source just dangling uselessly in the reference list.
And one way is a form of plagiarism, the other is just sloppy.
And both undermine your credibility. It's a systemic integrity check that has to be done slowly, line by line, to ensure perfect alignment.
Okay, the technical format is perfect. The citations are synchronized. We're now at the final crucial step before submission,
Mm,
the ultimate structural read-through.
great.
And the force makes it clear this is fundamentally different from editing or proofreading.
Completely different. You have to change your mindset.
Yeah.
When you proofread, you're looking for stray commas or typos. When you structurally review, you are acting as an outside reader who is totally unfamiliar with your research, and you're testing the logic and the architecture of your argument. You're testing the flow and the coherence.
So you're putting yourself in the shoes of the academic reviewer who just wants the information presented clearly and efficiently.
Yes. And we have 3 key questions to guide this final pass. The first one is everything clear?
Is everything clear?
This tests the accessibility of your argument. Can an outside reader easily follow your logic from the intro, through the methodology, the findings, and to the conclusion? We often fail this test because we develop a kind of writer's blindness.
Yeah, you know what you meant to say, so you just skip over the gaps.
Exactly. And the main culprit here is weak transitions.
Ah, okay. Give us an example of where that clarity breaks down.
Okay, so say you finish a paragraph discussing the social impact of X, and the next paragraph starts discussing the economic history of Y. If the sentence connecting those two ideas is missing or weak, like, next, let's talk about Y, the reader has to mentally leap across this chasm.
It's jarring.
It is. But a strong transition bridges that gap. Something like, while the immediate social impact of X is clear, the long-term economic history of Y suggests that these changes were rooted in decades of pre-existing fiscal strain. You see,
Much better. It connects the ideas.
and you have to ensure specialized terms are either defined early on or used correctly and consistently. If clarity fails, your argument stalls.
Okay, so question 1 is about clarity. What's the second major check?
The second one shows respect for your reviewer's time. And it is. Are there any repeated ideas?
Redundancy.
Redundancy. It is surprisingly common in long papers, especially when sections were written at different times or by merging different drafts.
And it's not just about wasting words, is it?
No, it signals to the reader that you aren't fully in control of your material. Or worse, that you're just padding the length.
So where does this repetition usually crop up?
Often in the literature review versus the discussion section, you might accidentally repeat a crucial piece of evidence or analysis. For instance, you define a complex theoretical concept in detail in the literature review.
Okay.
Then you get to your discussion section and you spend 3 sentences re-explaining the same theoretical concept before you apply it.
When you don't need to.
You don't. You need to trust that the reader remembers the literature review and just jump straight to the application. Eliminating that redundancy makes the argument tighter, more powerful, and ultimately more persuasive.
And the final, most important question. Wow. The acid test of structural integrity.
Does each paragraph clearly support the thesis?
Every single one.
Every single paragraph in your body should have a clear purpose tied directly to proving, supporting, or explaining an element of your thesis statement. This helps eliminate the dreaded tangent paragraph.
Ah, the tangent paragraph. We've all written them. The one where you followed an incredibly interesting rabbit hole for 400 words,
Yes.
only to realize it doesn't actually contribute to the main argument.
Yeah. Exactly. We all fall prey to them. And if a paragraph wanders off into an interesting but ultimately irrelevant tangent, maybe a fascinating detail about the history of your methodology that doesn't actually justify its current use, it has to be either cut or radically revised to refocus its contribution.
So if you can't draw a straight line from that paragraph's topic sentence back to your core thesis,
It's not supporting the architecture of your paper. If that entire architecture is sound, clear, and efficient, then and only then are you truly ready for submission.
okay, so the paper is flawless. It's formatted, cited, structurally sound. Now, we face a completely different challenge, a translation problem.
A huge one.
The rules of the page just do not work on the stage. You spent weeks creating this dense, thorough, maybe 5,000-word document. Now, you might have 10 minutes to deliver it.
Which means you have to distill all that detail into maybe, 15 slides. It requires a completely different, highly strategic mindset. Your paper is designed for depth, for documentation, for archival. It's meant to be read slowly, referenced, and verified.
Right.
A presentation is designed for impact, for conciseness, and for immediate audience retention. You just can't transfer the information directly. You have to translate it into a narrative.
So where do you even start with that translation?
The first and most critical step in conversion is determining the core message. This is where brutal editorial efficiency has to begin.
I think of this as the elevator pitch version of your research.
That's a perfect analogy.
What is the one idea the presenter wants the audience to remember above all others? If they leave the room and can only recall one thing, what must that statement be?
Exactly. That core message should be a singular, punchy statement, the most significant finding or the primary implication of your work.
And everything else has to serve that one point.
Everything, every slide, every bullet point, every example, it must serve that singular point. If an interesting piece of methodology or a cool secondary finding doesn't directly support or explain that core message, it has to be ruthlessly eliminated,
No matter how much you loved researching it.
no matter how much you loved it. And that requires emotional distance, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You have to let go of the secondary details that prove how smart you are and focus instead on the few details that prove your point.
Yes. The greatest temptation is always trying to include too much. You have to move past the comprehensive nature of the paper and fully embrace the communicative nature of the presentation.
Okay, so once that core message is locked in, we move to strategic selection.
Right. And the biggest mistake presenters make is treating the presentation like an abbreviated reading of their paper.
Which leads to those overwhelming slides and a rushed, unintelligible delivery.
Exactly. So we need to stress this. Do not try to include everything. Instead, choose only your strongest findings. You're creating a highlight reel, not a documentary.
The wow moments.
Precisely. Select the key findings, whether they come from the literature review showing a critical knowledge gap or from your original results that directly and dramatically support that core message. Anything that's secondary, merely supplementary, or just too nuanced for a 10-minute explanation should be cut.
You can always hold those details in reserve for the Q&A.
Exactly. Hold them for the Q&A if asked, but don't slow down your primary narrative with them.
And this need for distillation is especially true when you're handling the background material. You have to dramatically simplify the literature review.
Oh, absolutely. The audience does not need to know the origin story of every scholar you cited. They are there to listen for your contribution. They need context, but not minute detail.
So you present themes, not a list of studies.
You present themes and major concepts rather than getting bogged down in the details of every previous study. So instead of saying, Jones 2020 found that 60% of students struggled with X, while Smith and Lee 2021 showed 75% struggled with Y, which is paper language.
Right.
You transition to presentation language, something like, the existing literature broadly identifies 3 converging themes suggesting a significant challenge in this area, particularly regarding cognitive load.
You're translating evidence into insight.
Yes, efficiently giving context and setting up your specific intervention. And speaking of which, you have to make your purpose explicit early on. Highlight your thesis clarity. Show how your research definitively answers the research question.
This gives the audience a form of reference.
It provides immediate structure and payoff. The first few minutes should establish the mystery, the research question, and immediately promise the solution, your thesis. It keeps them engaged.
So to help with this ruthless selection and focus, the sources provide a clear, standard framework for academic presentations. A skeleton to hang your findings on.
Yes, a proven recipe. And it starts, naturally, with the title slide. Clear, professional, concise, it sets the tone, so keep the design clean.
Okay.
Then you move immediately to background and importance. This slide provides the context, the gap in the research, or why this topic matters right now. This is where you justify why you spent time on this and why they should spend the next 10 minutes listening.
Next is the research question, the mystery you're trying to solve.
Phrased clearly, succinctly, one line, ideally.
Followed by the purpose of the study, your approach. What did you do?
Exactly. Did you run a survey, analyze a corpus, conduct an ethnography? But keep the methodology summary very brief. The audience is waiting for the answer.
Which brings us to the crucial phase. Key findings results.
This is where your distilled data lives. And the common failure here is presenting all the data.
Stick to the top 2 or 3.
The top 2 or 3 findings that directly support your core message. And this is immediately followed by the discussion or interpretation.
A critical distinction. Findings are facts. Discussion is meaning.
Yes. The biggest trap with this slide is just repeating the findings instead of interpreting them. If your finding is 70% of participants preferred A over B, your discussion shouldn't say that again. It should explain why they preferred A, or what the theoretical implications are.
Right. And then you look forward with the recommendations or implications. The so what?
The so what? Why should policymakers or future researchers or practitioners care about your results? This slide transitions your research from an academic exercise into a real-world contribution.
Then you need the conclusion.
A brief summary, a wrap-up. You reiterate your core message in new, memorable language. Give them a strong sense of closure.
Then finally,
The essential placeholder, the Q&A slide. Just put this up while you're fielding questions. It usually has your title, a simple thank you, and maybe your contact info. It's a professional visual anchor while you engage with the audience.
this whole structure can be completely derailed if the slides themselves are a mess.
Oh, completely.
So we have to address the necessity of clean, impactful slides that serve as cues, not a script.
Yes, maximizing visual clarity, minimizing cognitive load. The cardinal rule here is that slides should use short phrases instead of long sentences.
The 5x5 rule.
The 5x5 rule is a good guide. No more than 5 lines of text per slide and no more than 5 words per line. If the slide has full paragraphs, the audience will read the slide instead of listening to you.
And your delivery becomes redundant.
Totally. You need them focused on you, not reading ahead.
So bullet points are your friend.
They are, for easy digestion. But even with bullet points, you need rigor. Don't use 15 of them. Keep it brief.
And what about data? Charts and graphs.
The rule is strict. Use simple charts and only if needed. And they have to be easy to read quickly. If a chart requires 30 seconds of explanation just to understand the axes, it is too complex for a quick presentation. The data must be immediately understandable.
I hear that. But what if my finding is a complex correlation or some kind of interaction effect? How do I satisfy academic rigor without putting up a terrifying graph?
That's a great challenge. You have two options. First, you can pre-highlight the most important data point on the chart. Use color or a circle to draw the eye immediately to the finding you're talking about.
Okay. And the second option?
Second, if it's truly too dense, avoid displaying the raw chart at all. Instead, verbalize the summary statistic and use a bullet point to state the interpretation. For example, while the full correlation chart is extensive, the key takeaway is that the effect size was 0.8, which indicates. Focus on the meaning, not the raw visual complexity.
And overall, the slides must be clean and uncluttered.
Strategic use of white space, high contrast fonts, a professional, consistent design template. Avoid busy backgrounds, too many colors, or distracting animations. Visual noise is the enemy of academic communication.
Okay. We've transitioned from the desk to the podium. This section shifts our focus entirely to the performative aspect. You have the perfect slides. Now you have to bring the research to life and overcome that inevitable presentation anxiety.
Delivery starts the moment you open your mouth. We have to focus on speaking with intent and authority.
That means focusing on the opening. Begin with confidence. The instruction is crucial here. Start immediately with a strong sentence that explicitly tells the audience what the paper's about.
Yes. Don't waste your first 30 seconds with nervous, self-deprecating humor or apologies for being nervous.
Right.
Just state your purpose and your argument immediately. Something like, my research today addresses the critical shift in funding for sustainable infrastructure, focusing specifically on 3 key policy changes implemented between 2018 and 2023.
Boom. Immediate focus.
Immediate focus. And then you have to master pace control. This is maybe the most practical advice for students who are nervous. Acknowledge that stress makes us speak way too fast.
Oh, I've been there.
We all have. You must intentionally speak slowly and clearly.
I remember rushing through a presentation once, feeling like I was running out of breath. And when I finished, the moderator asked, "Could you repeat that last point at half the speed?" I realized the audience hadn't absorbed a thing.
That's the universal feeling. You feel like you're speaking too slowly, but to the audience, it feels just right. It gives them time to process, especially with complex academic vocabulary.
And related to pace is the crucial distinction. Explain, don't read.
Your slides are cues. They're not a script. If you just read the text on the slide, you lose credibility and engagement because the audience is always ahead of you.
Right, they've already read it.
The slides are there to remind you of the sequence and the key findings. The audience came to hear your interpretation and your elaboration. This distinction is what allows you to look up, to engage, and to interpret the points, which demonstrates a deep, confident understanding of the material.
And presentation isn't just about the words. It's also about how you hold yourself. We need to analyze those subtle physical cues that build presenter credibility.
Let's start with eye contact. Whether you're in a physical lecture hall or an online environment, You have to connect.
So in a room, you look at different sections of the audience.
Right. And online, you briefly look at the camera lens, not the screen image of the people. It makes the delivery feel like a conversation directed at the listener, not a recital directed at the wall.
And we should leverage nonverbal cues, using natural gestures to emphasize points.
Gestures signal comfort and conviction. If you're comparing two opposing concepts, use your hands to gesture to the left and the right. If you're emphasizing a key finding, use an open palm gesture to project honesty.
But it has to look natural.
It does, and the trick is practice. Rehearse the presentation until those movements feel smooth and intentional, not frantic or distracting. Just keep your hands out of your pockets and use them to punctuate the ideas.
And finally, the power of silence, strategic pausing.
It feels counterintuitive when you're trying to fill time, but silence is golden.
Why is it so powerful?
Well, it serves three critical purposes. One, it allows the audience a moment to digest complex points, especially statistics or theoretical concepts. Two, it helps you transition smoothly to the next point. And three, it just makes you sound thoughtful, confident, and entirely in control of your material.
It creates a rhythm.
A rhythm. A rhythmic flow holds attention much better than a continuous stream of noise.
Moving on to the language itself, the source advises focusing on vocabulary choice.
Use simple academic vocabulary. We have to reiterate the mantra, clarity is better than complexity. While your written paper demands precise, often technical jargon, your delivery should prioritize immediate communication. If there's a simpler, accurate word, use it. And avoid those overly long, nested sentence structures. Keep the spoken word concise and punchy.
And preparation is everything, especially when you're facing time constraints. You need to focus on preparation and timing.
You have to practice the presentation several times, timing yourself rigorously. Academic presentations often have very strict time limits, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. You have to know exactly where you are in the script at the 5-minute mark and the 8-minute mark.
And if you consistently go over.
Then you need to identify that secondary content to cut those pieces you held back in Section 2 and be ready to eliminate them entirely if the clock is ticking down. Going over time just suggests a lack of preparation and, frankly, disrespect for the schedule.
And when you finish, don't just trail off. We need the strong finish.
End with a powerful final line that effectively summarizes your research. This is your last chance to hammer home that core message. It should be memorable, definitive, and leave the audience with a real sense of closure.
Okay, now let's tackle the moment of maximum stress, the Q&A. Handling questions calmly is key, especially if you get a question you genuinely can't answer.
The Q&A is not an attack. It's an opportunity to show your mastery of your material's scope and its limitations.
So how do you prepare for that?
You can prepare mentally by categorizing the tough questions you might get. They usually fall into 3 types. Methodology critique.
Why did you choose that sample size?
Exactly. Or a scope critique.
Why didn't you look at X variable?
Right. And future work or implications. How does this apply to Y situation?
I think most students fear the methodology or scope questions because those feel like a direct challenge to the validity of their work.
They do, but they're often the easiest to handle professionally if you approach the moment with professional diplomacy. Don't get defensive.
So what's the formula? What do you say when you get a question that's outside your study?
Okay, there's a specific professional formula for responding. 1, you start by saying, that is a great question.
You validate the query.
You validate it. This immediately diffuses any potential tension and acknowledges the listener's insight. It turns a potential confrontation into a collegial exchange.
Okay, step 2.
2, you clearly and honestly admit it is beyond the scope of your current paper. Be specific. While my paper focused rigorously on the X demographic in the U.S. context, your question addresses the Y demographic in Europe. This demonstrates self-awareness of your study's boundaries.
And the final step.
3, you position the topic as a future research opportunity. You say, but it could be explored in future research. This demonstrates intellectual humility, self-awareness, and forward-thinking research maturity. You have successfully defended your current work by acknowledging a future avenue for research.
Okay, we've covered the technical submission checks, the performance tips. Let's zoom out. Why do we go through all this trouble? Why is academic submission and presentation mandatory?
It's so vital to differentiate between the 2 core functions here. Submitting the paper is, well, it's a requirement. You have to pass the course, you have to graduate. But presenting it, that's a profound form of contribution.
That's a crucial distinction. We're not just jumping through a hoop. What does the ability to present and defend research really signify about the researcher?
It demonstrates several critical attributes that are valued in any intellectual or professional environment. First, it proves deep understanding of the topic.
Right.
You cannot convincingly elaborate on findings or handle a nuanced Q&A or interpret complex data unless you possess true mastery, not just a surface-level familiarity with the sources.
And second, and this is so highly valued professionally, it demonstrates the ability to communicate complex academic ideas effectively to others.
Can you translate your specialized, jargon-heavy knowledge into an accessible narrative for an educated but general audience? That is the definition of intellectual leadership.
And third,
The presentation, particularly the Q&A segment, shows the capacity to defend the argument under scrutiny. This is the essence of scholarly debate. Can you stand by your methodology and your conclusions when you're challenged by informed peers?
so that move from solitary writer to public defender is the massive final step in academic maturation.
It is. It validates you as someone who has moved from just learning to actively contributing.
This entire process then, from that initial confusing blank page to the final Q&A, it culminates in something much larger than a grade.
So much larger.
It's about actively joining the knowledge community.
Precisely. The fundamental essence of academic growth is becoming part of a knowledge community through sharing and defending your research. When you submit your work, you're adding a piece to the collective puzzle. When you present, you're introducing that piece to the people who will actually build with it.
We've followed the learner's journey through the sources, and it's really worth just briefly walking back through that entire academic arc one last time to provide context and closure. Thinking of that starting point, that initial confusion, right up to this moment of mastery.
That journey began with the difficult, abstract task of choosing a topic,
Right.
then moving into the specifics of writing a research question that was focused and answerable.
Then came the heavy lifting, finding academic sources and mastering the process of taking notes, the synthesis and organization of information that built the backbone of the argument.
And that synthesis led directly to the formation of the core argument, writing a thesis that articulated your specific position.
Then the meticulous work of structuring the paper and synthesizing all that literature into a coherent narrative.
Followed by the diligence of revision, editing, and originality checks, which ensure the work meets professional standards of integrity.
And finally, the topic of today's deep dive, preparing for submission and presentation, the act of verifying and communicating that work to the world.
This is the complete cycle. And understanding this full arc from initial confusion to final presentation shows that this work is not just an assignment. It is comprehensive training for becoming a true contributing scholar in any field.
This has been an incredibly detailed look at the final, crucial mile markers in the academic process.
We've given you the tools to ensure that your incredible research isn't undermined by sloppy finishing work or ineffective delivery.
Let's just quickly recap the major actionable items.
Yeah.
Remember, the mandatory final formatting checklist consistency is king, especially when you're checking your hanging indents and heading hierarchy.
Right.
The goal of conversion is creating that concise highlight reel focused on one core message. Use your slides as cues, not a script.
And a delivery tip.
Perhaps the most powerful delivery tip: speak slowly and clearly, and use that three-part formula when you're faced with a question beyond your scope.
Your research deserves to be seen, heard, and absorbed in its best form. You've earned this final step. Now go finish strong. The final provocative thought for you to consider is this. The final act of submission and presentation forces the transition from merely knowing something to being able to articulate and defend that knowledge under pressure. Think about how that internal process of preparing to defend your work, rehearsing the arguments, anticipating critical questions, fundamentally changes your relationship with the material. It makes you not just a consumer of knowledge, but a verified contributor to it, ready to engage the knowledge community. Go forth and share your research.